Welcome to the Lindsay Hadley podcast show. I'm coming to you from the North Shore of Oahu, where weekly I interview some of the world's most inspiring people from business, philanthropy, and entertainment. I love collecting humans, and these are some of my favorites I've found along the way. This podcast is brought to us by Capita Financial Network.
Do you need help with the next steps of your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call or schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.
Hi, welcome to the Lindsay Hadley podcast show, brought to us by Capita Financial Network. We're so thrilled to have Navid Alipour on our show today. And Navid, thank you so much for joining us. You're in San Diego, is that right? How's it all going there?
I am in San Diego. Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Thank you so much, Navid. I'm so excited for you to talk a little bit about the world of AI. And today you're going to be talking about, you've been, as you said, you've been talking about this and addressing this issue way before it's become an idea as time has come, right? How long have you been in this space? And maybe start with giving us a little background of maybe your career and what led you into the trajectory where you are today and being a sector leader.
Sure. No, absolutely happy to address that, Lindsay. So my background, I joke that, my wife and I are the black sheep of the family in the sense that we're not doctors, but my father's a retired doctor, both my brothers, her dad, her stepdad, her sister. So healthcare is in our blood, but we went the law and business route. Now we had started our VC fund, Analytics Ventures, to invest here in San Diego in existing technologies that are using AI applications to make a better prediction, recommendation, forecast, detect anomalies that don't belong, because that could bring efficiency, save money, or increase revenues. And that's how we met the scientists, literally rocket scientists that had done work for NASA, that we ended up starting CureMetrics with, which is our first AI company. And we started it back in 2014 before it was in the news every day as it is right now.
Wow. So 2014. And at that point, when you first started, you're working with the world's greatest minds in this space, and you go into this venture. Did you have the criticisms that we're seeing now? Now that people are using Chat GPT and it's out to the public and they're getting their minds around the astronomical influence that this AI is going to have on the world and impact the sector. You're using it in these medical applications I'm so excited to talk about. But did you get people pushing back on the ethics of it? World domination, are we going to be taken over in humanity? Or is that only more recent as people are becoming more aware in the purview of it?
Well, I mean, definitely it's more in the news now. You have people like Elon Musk, which I admire what he's built. He's built some amazing companies and obviously is incredibly successful. But he whether he needs to be in the news cycle every day or he can't help himself, right? But making statements of robots and AI is going to take over the world. I'm not, I'm in the middle, right? There's the people that are doom and gloom and, oh my God, we're all done for. And then there's the, others that say that's all bogus. I think there are certain risks, but we're not anywhere near, in my opinion, the robots taking over, and especially in healthcare. At the end of the day, you have to, I like to say, marry the human intelligence with the artificial intelligence, so the HI and the AI together to help deliver better care. At the end of the day, no one wants a robot to tell them you have cancer. They want a human doctor to put their arm over their shoulders and tell them, hey, this is a bad place to be. This is what you got, but here's what we're going to do. And, we got this, and, we're going to fight this to the best of our ability. And so I think it's very different to say, use Chat GPT to write a LinkedIn post, or to, I've heard of a real estate agent using it this way or that way. But when you get to healthcare, healthcare is regulated, and deservedly so, because it impacts our bodies and bad decisions. So you have to have the human on the loop. So that's where I like to say, is a human in the loop? They're needed 100%. There's no AI. Is a human outside the loop? The human's not needed at all. Let's say if it's like a driverless car, the human's outside the loop, but a human on the loop, their AI is doing what it does to, let's say, detect breast cancer earlier, like we do, or heart disease earlier, or recommend the best combination of drugs. But there's a human that is overseeing that still. So it becomes a tool to empower the doctors to deliver better care. And that's where we like to say, AI is not going to replace the doctor, but the doctor using AI will replace the doctor that is not.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to say it, and so helpful. So Navid is the CEO of AI Med Global. What are the umbrella or suite of services, utility companies that you guys have
Sure.
under your guys, network?
Yeah, no, happy to talk about it. So AI Med Global, if you go to the website, aimedglobal.com, it would drive you to then CureMetrics.com and CureMatch.com. So AI Med Global is our, call it DBA name, doing business as a name, to talk about these two digital health companies that we started. They're separate Delaware C Corps because they kind of have different missions, although there's certainly been the argument to put them together, and we're exploring some options on that front to see if we could move things faster, potentially if they combine into one entity. But on the CureMetrics side, or let me take it a step back. If we're all going to live longer, outside of course, exercising and eating well and sleeping and taking supplements and all that amazing stuff that increasingly is being called wellness science, at the end of the day, cancer and heart disease are still the top two causes of mortality. So to fight it, you have to detect better, treat better, and monitor better, right? So
Oh,
detection
yeah.
is at the forefront. And that could be, of course, doing blood work or mammogram or Cologuard for colon cancer and a host of other things to detect earlier. And that's where we come in specifically on our women's health suite with CureMetrics, where our AI software detects breast cancer from a mammogram up to 6 years earlier. So earlier than
Wow.
anyone else. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And in fact, we were the first company in history to get FDA clearance. It's software, but it's considered a diagnostic. So you have to go through the FDA to get that cleared. So we're the first company in history in 2019 to get a clearance for an AI product, in regards to breast cancer detection. And what it was, and our here, small team of 20 people on the CureMetrics side did this. We're not in Silicon Valley. We don't have 300 people, and we were able to do that before anyone else. And then what we also can do, not to take away from breast cancer, but from the same mammogram, we can also detect heart disease in women by detecting and scoring what's called breast arterial calcification. So
Wow.
calcification builds up in all our bodies as we get older, some faster though. And so if you can detect the calcification building up in the arteries and capillaries of the breast tissue from the mammogram, then you've got a 2-for-1. You're already getting that mammogram. It's not comfortable. You're already getting that radiation exposure, although minimal, but for no extra discomfort, no extra radiation, you can also detect if that woman has heart disease developing
Wow.
early on. And that's a lifesaver. I mean, if you can get that
That's
woman to
incredible.
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's because heart disease is called the silent killer amongst women, because with men we have symptoms, we have chest pain, shortness of breath. You go to the doctor, they tell you to exercise and eat better, and hopefully it doesn't need a surgery, and they say, here, get on a statin, right? That statin medication alone reduces the risk of a cardiac event 50 to 60%. So if women are asymptomatic and 65% die on that first heart attack because they never knew, and Lisa Marie Presley died at 54, right? And I know another story, not a famous person or a public person, but this person was an incredible athlete, and she died at 58 from a heart attack. Now imagine if on a mammogram in their 40s, they might not be a triathlete, but they eat well, they exercise, they're in decent shape. They don't know of any known heart disease in the family, but they say, hey, we detected breast arterial calc. You should go see a cardiologist. Now the cardiologist will do an EKG, do a stress test, do a blood panel, lipid panel to check cholesterol and all that, and then get them on a statin at 42, 45, whatever age they go in for that mammogram. And you just eliminated a heart attack that could have happened or delayed it significantly. Um,
Wow.
and not to mention the cost savings of the healthcare system are massive. a statin costs nothing. Getting an EKG, a stress test, sure, there's cost to it, but it's nothing compared to a heart attack happening. And the average heart attack from the moment the paramedics show up to whatever the end result, it's over $100,000 to the system.
So I mean, this is so cool because you talk about this preventative medicine, this wellness space, and the fact that women have to go in for these routine, procedures, and that you can actually get a better insight of what's going on in the body. Like, I mean, why is this not everywhere? What is it going to take for you guys to get this in every single practice in America and in the world? Like, what do you need from the public? And how, this is so stunning. I mean, how is this not immediately implied? Like, is this resource driven or policy driven, or what can we do?
Great question. I'm glad you asked it. And, there's a saying that, the law is always going to be behind technology, whether that's healthcare or that's cryptocurrencies that came out and then got then the laws caught up. So the law is always going to be behind technology. And the fact is, within healthcare, it's not just a software we developed to help, let's say, a restaurant sell more or ad tech company, right? Where there's, no regulatory bodies. We
Right.
have the FDA, we have the American Medical Association, and rightfully so. And so we have to, on the CureMetrics side, we have to get FDA clearance, even though it's software, to then legally sell it. And so we have that on one of our breast cancer products, right? The first one that we got in 2019. This heart disease detection one, we literally have been just a few weeks ago, we're having conversations I can't fully disclose, of course, with FDA, but we got a green light in regards to then doing our submission. And so we're in process of doing what's called a 510K. And so, knock on wood, we should have our clearance in the next few months. And then we want to, scream from the mountaintops what we can do to get this technology out there in the hands of imaging centers, hospitals, radiologists, to then be able to use this in the care of their patients. So I think that's where we're kind of flying the plane simultaneously, is working, of course, on getting that clearance, while simultaneously, of course, trying to publicize, and thank you for giving this opportunity on your podcast so more people know about us, to ask their doctors and be ready for what this is. And then, of course, resources. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're a startup. We are, we live off investment until, of course, the company can survive off cash flow. And so we are in process of, as most startups are, of raising capital to continue what we're doing.
That's so incredible. So you hear this a lot. You see, like, the average person sees, I don't know, a commercial in the middle of television say, ask your doctor about whatever
Yep.
the, medical prescription. Generally, those are big pharma ads generally.
Yep.
Is it the same thing then for technology? I've never even thought of that. Like, you're blowing my mind. Like, I can say, hey, I understand there's a new intervention. I understand there's a new technology. I'd like access to that. Like, you can have it on a demand signal.
I mean, 100%. That's something where, of course, we have to get the FDA clearance, and then to have the resources to spend money like the pharma companies to have a TV commercial. Obviously, those cost more. There's other ways, but you got it right, Lindsay. It's that we need, they put those commercials on because they want you to then go ask your doctor about drug X, Y, Z. So it's the same here. We would want. I like to say, if I owned an imaging center, I would want our technology. Because I would, the analogy I use is say, we're the salad dressing to your salad. So come to our, they sell more salad by having us as dressing. And so that's where an imaging center could say, come to our center instead of the one across town, because we have this CureMetrics technology that detects breast cancer better and also detects heart disease. No one else has that, right? And so so absolutely, we have to constantly be flying these different planes, so to speak. And our whole team is moving with an urgency. Even if we, move things one day faster, that's someone that is going to benefit.
That's so cool.
And then on the CureMatch side, so we have CureMetrics and then CureMatch. And so CureMatch, it's for any patient that has cancer. So as the oncologists say, it's pan cancer, man, woman, or child, not just women's health and breast cancer. And so the premise there, and we started this company with an amazing lady by the name of Dr. Rizal Kurzrock. That's Kurzrock for your listeners. If you Google her, you'll find a ton of content. A world-renowned oncologist, one of the top in the world, 800, 900 publications. And so her premise, being Canadian by birth, she always says, cancer is like a snowflake. No two snowflakes ever look the same. No two cancers ever look the same. So we identify cancer by the part of the body it's found in, lung, stomach, liver, breast, prostate. But really, it should be identified by the molecular makeup. So you could have a cancer in the lung that is very similar to the cancer that was found in the stomach. And so that's where a drug like Merck's Keytruda, which is a great cancer drug, initially was meant for lung cancer, but we started seeing it pop up in our report for stomach cancers and other cancers that were of molecularly similar type. So that's where if a doctor wants to recommend a 2 or 3 drug combination for a cancer patient, what we do at CureMatch, we take as our input what's called the NGS panel, which stands for next generation sequencing. So it's lab work from the biopsy. So we're software 100%. We don't do the lab work. We don't want to do the lab work. But that information comes to us, whether they enter it on our secure portal or they send us the PDF of the lab work. And based on that patient's, I say that lab work is like the 23andMe of that patient's specific cancer.
Wow.
And it says exactly the makeup of the cancer molecularly. And so we'll say, based on this patient's specific cancer, that there's no other kind in the world that is like this person's, and all the drugs available, here's the 3-drug, 2-drug, 1-drug combination that will have the best impact in fighting this cancer. And so then that report that we produce goes in the hands of the oncologist to help determine that treatment. And so we're not the one doing, they're the doctor. They decide ultimately what to administer. But we have had oncologists tell us that I would have never thought of that. And we have, if you go to our website, we have, famous doctors like Dr. John Link in Newport Beach, who all he focuses on is breast cancer. And he said, CureMatch has changed my therapy decisions. And so that's where we, again, can help fight cancer as early as possible with the best treatment possible so that they're ideally, of course, cured, or at a minimum, they end up living much longer. And again, as the oncologists say, to increase the overall survival or increase the progression-free survival.
Wow. So Navid, so I have a dear friend, someone I really love and admire, who's currently stage 4 cancer.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you so much. It's heart-wrenching. She's the most magical person. Is it too late at stage 4 to work with your technology? Can it still inform better protocol, or is it only for the prevention side?
It's not too late. It's never too late. The CureMetrics technology is on the detection side. The CureMatch technology is on fighting that cancer now, right? So of course, the best, I would love it if every cancer patient, before they had anything administered to them, any chemo, any immunotherapy, any radiation, they would get their NGS panel, their sequencing done. So they ask their doctor to get that biopsy sequenced, and then they would use us to get their CureMatch report, and then get treatment administered that's going to be best for them. And so stage 4 is, of course, much more serious than stage 1, but we've had patients that literally were on their deathbed 2 weeks with only 2 weeks left that ended up living 9 months longer.
Oh, wow.
And ultimately they, I'm thinking of a specific patient that did pass, and he was a Vietnam vet. He had other ailments. They got to us really late, but he went from 2 weeks to live to living 9 quality months relatively. And, we had his family member, writing us a letter, thank you for 9 more months of, with the grandkids and watching the sunset and so forth. And so that's what drives us and what we do. And it's personal for many of us on the team, because cancer, sadly, if that hasn't touched people personally, it's touched their spouse, their brother, sister, mother, father, dear friend, right? So
We've all lost people. Yes. I've had family members pass very young, and it's bewildering because you feel like with it being such a commonplace ailment and affliction in this world, why do we not have better stuff? And like here you are offering this premier technology. And I'm like, what do we do? This is like almost painful. I bet it's almost frustrating for you to sit back and be like, I have intervention. Why is this not out there immediately?
well, it is, we try not to get bogged down in the frustrations of, getting new technologies out there and, working within existing systems. I mean, in the US, oncologists make money off administering chemotherapy.
Mm,
This, some would argue this should not happen, right? Because it's in their interest to sell that chemotherapy, right? Now,
mm.
we don't come at it from that perspective because chemotherapy oftentimes it is what's needed, but but when you come into it, with new technology, um, you're always going to have to there's there's always going to be people that are going to question it, right? And so one of the ways we really address that, so we just like on the CureMetrics side, we got the first FDA clearance in history for our breast cancer AI on CureMatch. I'm happy to say in early January it was announced by the American Medical Association that we got a CPT code from the AMA. They're the organizational body that gives those. So we're the first company in history in a new category they created called augmentative intelligence. And we got a CPT code granted to us that goes live on July 1st, meaning that now oncologists can bill insurance for using CureMatch. And so it has helped with that clinical validity, right? Before we didn't have that. So some oncologists that are forward thinking would use us, other ones would, nod or question it. But now that we have that clearance by this governing body, we were in front of the Pathology Caucus, the American Medical Association, and you had letters of support sent in from top oncologists from Johns Hopkins and Moritz Cancer Center and MD Anderson and others saying CureMatch has changed my therapy decisions. That's got us to this point where it's gotten rid of a lot of the hesitation
It's
of
fabulous.
what is this new technology. And I have the utmost respect for doctors. Like I said, all my family are doctors. And so we're not here to say we're not here to replace the doctor. We're
No,
here to
no.
give them another tool to help combat cancer and deliver better care.
So are there specific clinics or like, so for example, with my friend, as an example, she's based here in Oahu. Her oncologists are like based, she has some team from San Francisco where she first, because she had cancer, went into remission. Now it's come out of remission. So she's battling it here in Oahu. Is there, how can she get access to this to see if and do the cure match? Like, is that something that,
Absolutely.
can we go to a special clinic? Do you guys have,
Well,
service providers we can access?
absolutely. So what I would say is, let's of course sync up off the podcast, but all we would need is once we're introduced to your friend that has cancer and their oncologist, we would have them enter on our secure portal her lab work, her next gen sequencing lab work.
Yeah.
And we get that and we can literally turn around our report in 2 to 3 days.
Oh my gosh. So it's
and get
remote.
that-
She doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my
No,
gosh.
she doesn't have to go anywhere.
It's
We get that
amazing.
back to her and her oncologist, of course, to the, I mean, with the 21st Century Cures Act, I mean, we all have a right to access our own health information, right? Whether it's our report or an x-ray or mammogram or blood work. So, but it's Greek to anyone who's not an oncologist to
Right,
read
right.
it. But
Yes.
the important thing is to get that in the hand of the oncologist, and for them to see then, based on the treatment she's getting now and what our report says, what changes potentially to make.
Amazing.
And so that's something, we could
We'll
do that
do it.
very quickly.
Incredible. I'm so glad to know about this. So then does the doctor bill, like how does I'm getting in the granular details, but just like understanding if listeners hear and go, I have a loved one, I want the same access.
Yep.
So they tell their oncologist, they link up with you guys, they say, I want this service.
Right.
And then does your doctor then try to bill it through insurance? Is it an additional fee? Like, how does that work?
No, good question. So we did get the CPT code that goes live July 1st.
Cool.
It's however, until then, Of course, it's not live. We charge $1,500 for our report, so $1,500 for our report. Right now, it's out of pocket. Once insurance covers it, then some insurances will cover it, some will not. So, of course, just like anyone's insurance, some things are covered, some are not. But it'll get to the point where they can offer it to the patient to say, we can bill your insurance for this. And if they don't cover it, it's out of pocket. Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
And at
of
the end of the
course
day,
you would. It's nothing to get
our
that
$1,500,
nothing.
exactly. I mean, the lab work alone, that the labs charge, a couple of $1,000s, and insurance covers, many insurances are covering that now, not all, or at least part of it. So we're a small part of the cost.
Right.
And at the end of the day, people spend more on their pets, right?
Totally.
And so 1,500 is, some have said they thought our price was too low, but if anything, we want to drive our price lower as we do higher volume. We don't want the price to go up. We want the price to go down.
I mean, I think it's incredibly affordable, and you're looking at life. I mean, there's no price on someone's life that you love. Like that's just, but I love that you're trying to make it low so there's more access. What are your thoughts about your company in terms of entering into the developed world? Have you worked with philanthropists of saying, oh my gosh, this, because you can move, there's a quicker speed of access sometimes in the developed world because it's not as regulated and the technology can get to those on the front lines.
No, that's a very insightful question, Lindsay. And the fact is, a lot of our investors are very mission driven, whether they were the institutional VC investors or hedge fund investors or family offices or individuals that they lost a loved one to cancer, or they want to make money, but they want to do good too. So we have a lot of folks that are, very mission driven, and we do want to work with nonprofit organizations worldwide to help get our technology out there. And there are certain parts of the world that, they're trying to build these medical tourism centers, and they want people to come there for care. So they're using us to attract patients to their centers to say, hey, come here and you will get better care. Something that's a little frustrating in the US, I'll share this. So there's an oncologist that shared this with us that, this oncologist gets a lot of patients from internationally, from Latin America or Europe or Middle East or Asia, that come to the US for cancer care. Now, they pay all cash for everything, right? They don't have a US health insurance. So they're better to do individuals that are coming from, let's say, China, and they pay cash for everything, including the drugs, the treatment. So the cash price for oncology drugs, it's much lower price than the price that's built to insurance if you're a US based patient. And so they can get anything because they're paying cash for it. And the oncologists charge a 6% markup. So they make their profit on that. And so it goes much faster for international patients sometimes that come to the US, which is frustrating, for all of us, it should be frustrating because we live here, but that's part of the regulatory, healthcare ecosystem we're in. Whereas if a patient is in the US, if our report recommends an off-label treatment, then they have to, then the oncologist and there's services that are, pharmacologists that will, work to get that off-label drug covered. And it oftentimes, it works here in San Diego at Morris Cancer Center, where they do off-label treatments. They're, people that help get the treatment get, 95% of off-label drugs covered, I think, from the last I heard. But it's still a frustration that we have to go through this as opposed to an international patient come, pay cash price, get it immediately for whatever cancer they have. And so that's the nature of the beast. But to your initial question, we absolutely can do international business. Cancer doesn't know borders or boundaries. So we've had cancer patients and oncologists, from Canada to Poland to Germany to Israel to Turkey to Asia to Africa, that we've helped.
Gosh, that's so stunning. And I love that you've heard these stories back from patients who have had these incredible outcomes. Do you know what your statistics are right now in terms of early intervention, life saved? Like, do you have those metrics pretty solidly, or is it still kind of something you're ongoingly, I'm sure you're measuring, and it's hard to even understand the full measure because you're constantly finding out what the trajectory of those outcomes are?
So, again, a great question. And that's harder for us to do because we don't, at the end of the day, we're not the one taking care of the patient, right? We produce that
Right.
report and goes in the hands of the oncologist. So we have these anecdotal stories where whether the patients or the oncologists, to tell us or share with us, but we don't track that information because oncologists don't have enough hours in the day, so they're not coming back to us with every patient saying, "Hey, guess what? That patient you cure matched, a year and a half ago is cancer free," or they were supposed to only live 6 months. They're a year and a half later, they're still around. So we're trying to track these case studies and trying to work with the insurance companies and the self-insured companies, frankly, that have that information, and so that we could publicize that better.
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done.
Dang, I know, because that would be such a virtuous cycle if you could get that information easily.
It would. We just had, off the top of my head, it was a patient in Israel that found us last week, paid us. We got the information we needed, the lab work, we cure matched them, sent it back. And we, found out today that, they ended up making a different decision based on the information we provided that otherwise they would not have.
Wow,
that's
amazing.
That's where that, literally that hit, my email this morning. And so it's fresh off the top of my head, but that's what drives us when we hear that we made an impact in someone's care.
So rewarding.
That otherwise would have had another treatment. And it's really sad. One story I'll share here, talking about these anecdotal stories. One of our employees, her mother sadly passed away in 2016 from cancer. We didn't know her. She didn't work for us at the time. And so she had the idea, and this is on our website. We ended up doing a publication on this, I think, on CureMatch, where she said, what if we do a CureMatch report on my deceased mother's, it was a Foundation Medicine panel. So Foundation Medicine is a company that was acquired by Roche, the big pharma company, and they produce this next-gen sequencing. They're one of the many companies that do this, but they're one of the larger ones. And so let's CureMatch the Foundation Medicine lab panel to see what CureMatch would have recommended. We found the drugs that her mother was administered only had an 11% efficacy, whereas the treatment that our report recommended had a 44% efficacy, so 400% better response. Now, that doesn't mean that she would have been cancer-free necessarily, but she would have definitely lived much longer, and she would have definitely had, not had those toxic side effects for nothing, right? Side effects I've never heard of, like her eyelashes growing into her eyeballs, and all for 11% efficacy. That's horrible. And so that's where we can make an impact by saying, before you, and this is where I'm a big advocate for second opinions, whether it's for cancer or heart disease.
Absolutely.
Or if you want to get a surgery on your back or your leg or anything serious, get a second opinion. Advocate for yourself, advocate for your loved ones. And we know so many stories where, patient went to an esteemed healthcare system back east, had breast cancer. The doctor said surgery and radiation. She went and got a second opinion from another esteemed institution, an oncologist, that said surgery, yes, radiation, absolutely not. And she goes to the first doctor who said, nope, if you want me to take care of you, we do surgery and radiation. Most people would have stopped right there. Most people would have not even got the second opinion. This person, to her credit, went to a third doctor, now at the same institute as the first doctor, who agreed with the second one that said surgery only. And he said, I'll take care of you. So she got just surgery and was able to avoid having radiation.
Wow.
Now, this is huge. This is going to add years to her life. Radiation causes many other issues. And of course, it fights the cancer in many cases and is needed. But it affects your heart later on in life, and there's other cancers and issues. So if you could avoid it and it's not necessary, keep that in your toolbox for, God forbid, when a cancer comes back, and use it if it's needed. But that's where, again, if your listeners take one thing away, whether they have the cancer or heart disease or anything else, get a second opinion.
Yes.
And advocate for yourself. At the end of the day, doctors are wonderful people to go into the profession they do, but there's good ones, less good ones, and people are people, and human and mistakes can be made. So
Yeah.
get a second opinion.
It's so interesting because we just lived through a global pandemic, first one in our generation. And it's like, I just noticed we're in this really divisive place in our culture. I would just say the general zeitgeist in media and stuff is like questioning
Yeah.
of authority, right? And we don't trust our news sources anymore. We don't trust our academic. When I say this, I'm saying in general, there's this motif of distrust. And we saw this with the medical professionals as they were saying, here's the best way to move forward through this. And people were questioning. And you talk about this advocating for yourself. I personally have lived through this tension where my default, just full disclosure, is to refer to the experts. Like I'm like, gosh, you have all the training and all the expertise. I don't know what I'm doing here. Here you go. Here's my life, or here's the decisions. But then as we've watched that there's just a lot of, because of social media and exposure, there's a lot of misinformation. And people are also, they're starting to say, hey, you said this and it didn't come to pass. Like it's not without warrant. Like I can't just, I'm a political moderate. I can't just dismiss all my friends that were in a certain position because they had lived experience and anecdotal evidence and other things. Hopefully that's where we can look to like just data, and it gets out of this emotional party politics or how you feel about things or who it's coming from. And it's like, this is just data. It's information, and black and white numbers can't lie, but then we've seen people twist data for their own divisive ends. How do you feel like AI in this world might help with some of this, perpetuating this kind of divisive culture we're in?
Yeah, wow, Lindsay, I think we could talk for hours on your one question here, and we can get into not to get into the politics of things, right? But I think I'm like you. While I tend to be fiscally conservative on pretty much everything else, I'm moderate, right? In my views, I'm not hard right or hard left. And the extremes. And I think we're in an environment where there is, everyone's an expert, right? Everyone's an expert on social media. Totally. Everyone wants to drop knowledge
because they have a soapbox,
right? Exactly. And you have then the news that comes out that's inaccurate, and when news comes out that's inaccurate, that people lose trust, right?
Yeah, wades trust, and totally.
And so now yes, there's AI, and there's AI that could be used for bad or for good. What I always say when people ask about artificial intelligence, is it evil? Is it this? I say, look, it's a tool. It's going to be used for good and bad, and our job is to mitigate the bad effects, right? It's like the horse is out of the stable. You're not going to put it back in, right? And it's like, I like to go to the example of the automobile, right? When the automobile was invented, there were people that said, what's going to happen to, the people that take care of the horses, and the horse buggies and horseshoes are going to lose their jobs. And look, it's going to cause all this pollution. And yes, all of that happened, and all that people die from car accidents, it causes pollution. But at the end of the day, as a civilization, we are much farther along because of the automobile than without it. And the car is not evil. It is used for good, and sometimes it causes accidents, and other times it's actually used to cause an accident and hurt people, and that's sad. And AI is the same. It's a tool. And who's using it, and is it for good or bad, is what we have to focus on. And so I absolutely think that there are bad actors out there, and our job is to mitigate those risks. But it doesn't mean that it won't be used for bad. And I think we just have to be mindful and just more aware, and question things when they seem out of place. And the fact is that it's been in the news recently to let's hit pause. The government should mandate that all companies hit pause on developments in artificial intelligence. Well, I don't agree with that one bit, because one, it's impossible to say all companies in the US stop working on AI developments. Like, how are you going to do that?
No, yeah.
And two, let's for argument's sake assume it could be regulated, and they could make every company, large and small, from Google and Microsoft to two people in their garage with computer scientists working on something. Let's assume you could make everyone stop. Do you think the Chinese are going to stop, or the Russians, or even our friends in the UK
No,
or Israel
no.
or elsewhere? No, they're not going to stop. And if we stop, we're going to become a third world country, and others will innovate way past us. We can't stop, even if
Yeah.
there was a way to do that. So, again, horses out of the stable. We just have to, now help, maintain the again the good, and help mitigate against the bad actors. And I think whole new categories of jobs, by the way, will be created that we can't even fathom. So there's now a PhD in AI ethics someone can go get, and let's say every factory that's producing a robot or a car that's driverless needs to have someone that has a PhD in AI ethics. Well, that's probably going to be a pretty high paying job.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's, I mean, to realize that'll be such an important part of the human component, is to say, how is this being used in a way that is morally not bankrupt?
I mean, I think that in the C-suite of every large company, there should be a chief AI officer.
Yeah.
That's going to be an entirely new category, right? There should be a board member on every company that has some background in AI. And these people, they don't have to be data scientists. They have to know how the tool can be used. So I'm not a computer scientist, right? I come at it from a strategy and business side, on how can it be used to predict, to recommend, to forecast, to detect, to increase revenues, to decrease costs, to help save lives, and et cetera and so forth. And also, how can we protect ourselves from bad actors that might use AI to harm our company, our country, our business, and so forth.
This is so helpful. Navid, would you recommend any resources or podcasts or books or websites or tools to get more educated in this space, just in general, in the utility of AI, where it's going, anything like that you've just seen, but being at the front lines of this sector first since the early, 2014. I'm sure you were before you launched, a decade
Oh
into
yeah.
understanding where this was going. So yeah, is there anywhere that you'd say, hey, if you want to get, the best orientation, and you kind of feel like all you're getting is from Instagram or like the media that you're consuming on the news, here's a really trusted third party source?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a host. If someone is obviously at the point where they're getting an education right now, or they're doing continuing education, there are, great online courses and universities in person that have computer science and AI courses, and even these 1-year certification programs that are online. There's other ones that, if it's not for education purposes, just for your own general knowledge, right? Someone could go into, whether it's Coursera, or there's Andrew Ning, very well known, and he has a lot of classes. They have a lot of classes online, and I could send you some links to share with your listeners, of course, as well. There's a ton of areas where someone can get better educated, and webinars, and a lot of it, if there's a lot out there to Google and find, but I can send you some links as well to share with your listeners.
I'd love that. Well, thank you so much. Kind of last question here. In your, the next, I don't know, as you look forward to the trajectory of where you're headed, what do you hope to see? And like, as a leader, as a person, with your company, the world, like, do you have certain ambitions, goals, things that any of our listeners can listen to and sharing your vision and your dream, anything like that?
So, great, deep question there. So, I think what drives me is, again, I'm all about, I want to live to 150 years, right? And there's very famous people. I'm certainly not famous, like Mark Hyman, that talk about living a high quality life to 120 and 150, and there's others that are even more out there saying living longer. And so I'm in that camp. I want to be able to live a high quality life, or if not to 120, live an incredibly high quality life to 90, right? Instead of being sick the last 5-10 years of your life. And so it drives me where my personal desire for myself, for my family, for my loved ones coincides with the work I'm doing. And again, cancer and heart disease being the top two causes of mortality. And as a, from a personal fulfillment side on work, I'm looking to drive these companies to become as successful and large as possible to provide our digital health AI solutions to people all over the world. I mean, if we can go into entire countries and healthcare systems and detect breast cancer 6 years earlier, detect heart disease, I mean, we're going to impact tens of millions of lives. And think of the additional years of life and what will be done by all those people that live longer because of that. So that's while I'm not a doctor practicing medicine to help people, that's kind of my way I think of being able to do good and also help grow a successful business.
That's amazing. That's such a stunning hope, desire, and come from. I really appreciate having you on. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And we'll put some links in the podcast when it goes out for people to find out more. And I'll have to connect with you offline about helping my friend. I'm so grateful.
Oh, absolutely, Lindsay. A pleasure being on, and the hour flew by. And yeah, please send me, email me, and I'll be happy to see what we can do for your friend. And looking forward to listening to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Navid. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Take care.
Do you need help with the next steps for your financial plan? Think Capita. Capita is a financial network built around you. They have a team of financial advisors, CPAs, estate attorneys, Medicare providers, and Social Security experts to help you accomplish your financial goals. Call to schedule a complimentary consultation at 801-566-5058 or visit their website at www.capitafinancialnetwork.com. You can also check out their financial education podcast, The Financial Call, available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube.